Hi, I'm John Sarakis with the Digital Mastermind. You're listening to The Climb. This is where agency owners and leaders tune in to get growth tips and strategies for growing their businesses. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of The Climb, episode number 9, where we're going to be talking about purpose-driven leadership. We have a fantastic guest today. Before we get into that, I'd like to chat with my partner in climb here, David McGraw, who's sunny and shinier than ever, suffering from coronavirus.
Doing a good a morning show. Are you making this a morning show now?
It's the only time that our guest could get us into his busy schedule. So, we had to adapt, so to speak.
Excellent.
So when I say purpose-driven leadership, what do you think of, Dave?
I think of somebody that has some really strong values that they guide their company with every decision they make.
Yeah, I think of the Simon Sinek's, the guy that wrote or brought about the whole why. Everybody has to get behind their why. Think about big leaders like Steve Jobs, where they wants to make things different, put a dent in the universe. And when I go with purpose, because at one point, this was years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the silver bullet. This is what's been missing the whole time.
So challenging though.
I know, because everybody has their separate purposes, right? You have your own purpose. And at the end of the day, you hear all these companies that are, no, we're just going to lead with purpose, and profitability is like second or third or something. And what ends up happening is, there is no profitability because it wasn't the leading thing that everybody was moving toward, which granted can be a bad thing. So I think there's this balance that has to take place.
What I like to equate it to is, I'm a New England Patriots fan, and I look at the Patriots and how they're run, and they're a purpose-driven organization. Everyone gets on message the Patriot way. And then you have these 31 other teams that are just trying to put a winning franchise on the field that year. And some of them have some process, but nothing like the Patriots way. Now, when teams try to do the Patriot way, most of the time they end up exploding because they don't have the leaders that it takes to get everyone on purpose. So they never really achieve that summit like the Patriots do. But then you have all these other teams that are just trying to cobble together a winning victory for this season. And that's like your Chiefs. Hey, they magically, they win.
Wasn't magic.
You have all these teams that win a Super Bowl and then go back to the mean. Mm-hmm. So the purpose-driven way will get you, if you can align your stars and your leaders and really align management, then you can compete every single year. But that is so difficult. And that is the challenge of why purpose-driven leadership is so difficult, because you have to have the pieces, the right people in the right seat. Otherwise, you're just hoping to compete this season.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, one is you get the purpose, right? And then it's either indoctrinating, quasi brainwashing, or finding other people that also believe in that same purpose, right? Granted, you have a bunch of football players, so hopefully it's all, hey, we want to win. The other side too is making sure that you find those people that are also capable of performing at the level that you need to compete in your market, right? So I think and maybe I'm just, I was too fuzzy when I was going about it. And it's not that I don't disagree with the purpose. I think the purpose at one time was, to build the world's most sought after agency or something like that as the company. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure. But one question is, I'm not a Patriots fan at all. But I'm a Bill Belichick fan because I can appreciate what he's done.
Right.
And I think anybody that doesn't, is just, being a hater. What are some of the things that they've done to create that purpose-driven organization?
Well, like I said, it comes down to, you have to have your core leadership, and you have to just completely, buy into that message. I mean, the players that come there have to buy into that Bill Belichick way, and some don't. There was that player from that ended up going to the Eagles and saying, it wasn't fun playing there, and we like to have fun, and it's different. But the Patriots are competing for Super Bowls every year, and not every other team is. So you have to have leadership. That's why it's so difficult. The leadership that the Patriots have, from ownership to coach to GM and quarterback, which the coach and the GM are the same person. But those 3 pillars are why you can have a purpose-driven, team. If you're constantly swapping out a coach or a GM or the owner, I mean, think about it in business terms. If you're constantly swapping out a project manager, constantly swapping out a revenue officer, constantly swapping out a salesperson, how do you have a purpose-driven leadership team? You're constantly trying to work on the base and just getting everyone aligned. And as long as you're working in the alignment phase, you're never going to become Apple, right? Because Apple has been aligned for decades, and new people don't come in and disrupt that.
So you're saying it's you need to hold on to your team.
Well, they have to be the right. I mean, that's why it's a
right.
magical
They have
formula.
to be the right team, but you also have to hold on to your team.
Yeah, and that's why those Apples, the Patriots, the Apples, the companies like that, the organizations that operate like that are magical. They're not created every day. They are the unicorns because it's so difficult to get that magical alignment that turns you into just the overwhelming power in your industry.
They're the outliers.
Yeah, it's so difficult.
And I think a lot of things have to align, right? You have to be right place, right people, but it's something we can all strive for.
Sure.
And, I look at average, right? So if you're the average between, the mom and pop all the way to Apple, what does that look like? Is that a happy company? Is that a decent living?
It's tough. I mean, you look at like sport organizations, they at least have the benefit of contracts and collective bargaining agreements to bind leadership people into your organizations. At our level, you could have a leader leave. The pressures at the small agency level, and probably why it's so difficult to grow into that next echelon, is because the second you get just the tiny bit of fame, even regionally, everyone's coming to poach you. You've got recruiting agencies that are coming to poach you. Your culture has to be so strong to maintain
the purpose.
Yeah, to maintain the purpose. That it's very difficult. There's a lot of challenges to maintain that. That's why when you see it, it's magical. It's special.
And you also want to poach from when you see it.
Sure, of course.
Right, because it's something that we can do. No, I think those are great points. And our guest today has done a whole lot of things, from building agencies to building multiple different businesses, and now he's the CEO of a separate company. So he's a hell of a lot smarter than we are at this, I would say, and I look forward to talking to him. So today we're going to be talking with Jeb Banner of Boardable, and with Jeb Banner of Boardable. Jeb, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me, John. It's great to be here.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. All right. So what I like to do before we get into everything is give listeners an overview of your climb. That's essentially the story of, where you are now and, what got you there. So feel free to stop me if any of this is inaccurate. You're originally from South Bend, Indiana, musically inclined, in and out of multiple bands. Indiana University graduate where you majored in English. You started in the digital space via eBay stores in the late 90s, started an agency Smallbox in 2006, which was a web development agency, marketing agency, and now appears to be a brand experience company where you've taken an advisory role. You've been affiliated with multiple nonprofits over the years and an investor in multiple ventures. And now you're the CEO of Boardable and you live with your family in sunny Indianapolis. Is that accurate?
Not the sunny part.
All right.
It's occasionally, this time of year, very rarely sunny, but yeah, the rest of it's pretty on point.
Okay, cool. Right on. All right. Another quick thing to give people to paint a picture I like to do is everyone has tools to support them on their climb, right? So, what tools do you use that are in, what we'll call your backpack? So which tools do you use to operate? Are you an iPhone or Android guy?
iPhone, Mac, in terms of that toolkit, definitely Google in terms of platform for myself and the business, Slack in terms of internal communication. Then it gets into a lot of other stuff. But, obviously Zoom, as we are speaking right now.
How about note taking?
Note taking, Google Docs a lot. I write things down. I use physical notebooks. I still use Evernote a little bit. That's more for like kind of personal stuff that I just want to store. I use notes on my phone, but I like to write things down physically in a notebook.
Okay. All right. Cool, man. All right. So when I met you like 6 or 7 years ago, your agency was rocking. You had this peaceful like Steve Jobs aura about you, and you had spin-off companies with former employees. One of my biggest takeaways, something you taught me, in one of the DMG events was about core values and North Star. So you were like a waterfall of knowledge. I mean, anytime you were talking, it was like, hey, shut up, Jeb's talking. I mean, but you don't command any of that. It's all organic. So I guess my biggest question is, why did you transition out of owning your agency?
Well, I still own the agency.
Okay.
I
Even better.
transitioned out of the CEO role.
Yeah.
I was burned out. I would really, looking back on it, it became clear that I had spent the last 5 or 6 years at Smallbox trying to find the product in the business,
Yeah.
trying to find the reoccurring revenue, and I just could not find it. And for a couple of reasons, I couldn't find it. One was the DNA of the team. I'd hired all these people to work at a creative agency, and that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to work with clients and solve problems, and that was their DNA. And I had this entrepreneurial DNA to go out there and really find that product or something scalable with that reoccurring revenue. And it really just created a lot of friction because I was pushing the team in a direction that they just didn't want to go. And I appreciate that now. At the time, it was very frustrating. Like, that's just not who they were. They didn't want that kind of business. They didn't want to build a product. So we went down about almost a dozen different paths that had product potential. And eventually, one of them spun out and became Boardable. And it's fortunate that happened because otherwise, I don't know if I would have continued with Smallbox much longer. My energy for it was just dwindling, and that was impacting the company. We had some really great years, particularly like 2015, I think was a high water mark for us. And then after that, in 2016, I started Boardable with the co-founders, and my energy started to shift. And that really starved the business. When the CEO got one foot out the door, which I did for a full year and a half of that business before my wife took it over in 2018, it became a real challenge.
Right on. And so were you always trying to develop a product as you had this agency? You're like, hey, this seems like a really good idea.
I
At
mean,
Small
we
Box.
really were looking back on it. We built a to-do product in 2006 called twodue.com, to do. It's very, very, very punny.
Yeah.
We built our own content management tool, which we never really productized, but we'd redeploy. We built a content gathering tool, which we called Wrangle. We built a sales tool called Digital Leave Behind. We built a employee engagement tool called Culture Tap. So me and my co-founder Joe, we really were more product minded in how we were doing everything. And there's many more. That was just the top of the list, and we kept on going down these rabbit holes that had product, but we never made the jump from tool to product.
Right.
And the difference between a tool is something that you deploy for your own use or for a customer's use. Products, more of an enterprise offering that's got all the different, layers of complexity and integrations, and it's just a whole different beast. Boardable really became that first opportunity where the alchemy aligned for the product play to really make a sense for us. Up to that point, nothing had really had the right alchemy to jump from tool to product.
Got it. So so I guess did you invest, to test it on the market though? With things aligned, just like, all right, we just lost $100,000 on trying to get this tool that's supposed to, sell in this space like we use it.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly lost a lot of money doing other things, but with Boardable, we've gotten smarter as we went along. So it happened like this. So we had spun out a software company called Gravy Lab that was building software as a service. In other words, software for other companies. Because we had customers who were doing that for it at Smallbox, we realized that it really was not where the company was going with the focus on brand and nonprofits and everything that Smallbox does now. So my co-founder, Joe, along with one of our employees, went and ran that business, and I became a partner in that. And after a year of that, local United Way came to us and said, can you build us a board portal? And we looked at looked at it, we spec'd it out, and it was a lot of money. And Jason Ward, who was the CEO, president of Gravy Lab at the time, said, hey, I think this is something that a lot of nonprofits could use. And I agreed. At that point, I'd started 2 nonprofits and been the chair of both those boards. And it was really a problem managing a board using email, Dropbox, Google Drive, all that stuff. And we call it digital duct tape now, just trying to like pull together, if
Frankenstein it.
Yeah. If you've served on the board, you know what I'm talking about. And so we went back to the quote. They're like, holy cow, this is a lot of money. We're like, yeah. And it's also a tool. It's not a product. So, and we looked at the market, and the market was mostly for profit. It was expensive. It was not self-service. And we thought there's a play here to put something in the market that's self-service, that's affordable, that really targets nonprofits. And so we built a beta version of what became Boardable in 6 weeks, just a real MVP. Wow. And we got it out and gave it to about 6 nonprofits in town, including United Way. Basically said, tell us, A, do we have product market fit? Does it like solve the problem? And B, what else does it need? And we got really good validation and feedback. And then we completely rebuilt the platform from the ground up after that. And that was around the end of 2016. And we launched our, GA, what they call, generally available product, at that point as well.
Got it. So did the one client pay for the build out, or you guys said, no, hey, we're going to build this out, and then?
No, they didn't pay for it. We ended up just taking our runway, and just using it for that specific build out. So we just took the runway from Gravy Lab. And then once we got to some validation, we actually moved it back kind of into Smallbox, but not really directly. It was just basically Joe and I's salary was covered by Smallbox. And then we had some other folks that were working part-time. And then I put some money into Boardable. At that point, it was called Boardable. And then we got funding early 2017 from outside investors. So there was a period where we were basically bankrolling it through the payroll of Smallbox, but it was operating independently, which to me is like possibly the most critical lesson I learned trying this many, many times within the agency is I just don't know, maybe some agencies can do this, but I've never been in a situation where I could really incubate within the agency while the agency was chasing service revenue. You really have to have these things siloed because you just can't serve 2 masters. At the weekly meeting, what are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about what generates revenue. Your focus goes there. The product always eats last. And so it starves and it doesn't get attention. And I did that over and over and over until I finally figured out you can't do that. And of course, people told me I couldn't do it, but I was a knucklehead, and I just thought, well, I'm going to find a way to do it. And so
I'm the exception.
I'm the exception. I'm not the exception. And I've yet to really see a truly, maybe there are some exceptions out there, but they almost always are like really separated as an entity, Skunkworks or, even if they're on the same payroll, they're not functionally connected.
Right. Now, also something that you said, well, first off, I want to make a statement. I think that shows something to your ethics. I know a lot of companies that will develop a product for somebody else that pays for it. And I don't know whether it's a right or wrong thing. And they're like, oh, we're going to go ahead and take this and then sell it to everybody else in their space. Right. So I think it's cool that you didn't do that. And it's for nonprofits. So there's a happy ethos there. The other thing I want to say is which intrigues me, from a self-interested standpoint, you spun off a SaaS building company. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
That sounds pretty gnarly. That didn't work out?
Yeah, it worked for about a year. We had some problems like on the sales side of it. And we just couldn't really get traction. We had with some customers, but we just really, I don't think, had an offering that was necessarily connecting with the market in the right way. But we had the right team to build a product.
Right.
So it was more like a biz dev kind of, demand gen kind of problem. And with a 2-person team, we could build things really quickly. And I wasn't selling for that company. I was selling for Smallbox, So it just kind of starved after a while. but
That
it
makes sense.
did well enough to have like some cash reserves to have some runway to do something on our own. So we decided to just make a pivot.
Got it. Yeah, because in that space, SaaS usually it's somebody they have like a developer background developing that product, so they're developing the software as a service themselves. That's what intrigued me about that. I was wondering if you had like amazing sales on it, but you didn't have a team to support it. I was like, oh man, that's
Yeah.
a space we need to go into. All right, let me get into some of the other questions here. As far as what is it like having the separate company after owning an agency for your marketing? So like, do you have an agency working on your stuff, or is that something that you guys all do in-house?
No, we've really built out a really strong internal marketing team at Boardable. We outsource freelance some stuff, to different, contractors, as I think a lot of folks do now. Actually, we've done that really since day one with marketing and a lot of areas of the business to build scalability into the business. Now that we've gotten sort of next level funding, we're bringing more of that in-house. Yeah, the core marketing team is very strong. We've got folks that have been doing this a long time that really know how to build demand. And our VP of marketing, Julie Perry, has worked at nonprofit tech company before Boardable. She's got 20 years really in digital marketing, and we're continuing to build that team up. We just hired a woman that formerly worked at Google and worked at Ask.com, and so this is to us like really one of our secret sauce things, because with my background in marketing and the team we've built, we're going to market in a way that I think is highly efficient and a little disruptive compared to what some of the competition's doing. I mean, the competition's doing really good stuff too, but our focus on really quality content. We've also brought a data scientist on board full time, and so we're starting to dial in the behaviors and patterns that really lead to conversions and score those things: PQL scoring, MQL scoring, SQL. It goes MQL, SQL, PQL. PQL being product qualified. So once they're in the product, the behaviors of that, and how do you kind of pull them back into the path they took as they became, awareness to prospect to customer and all that. It's really fascinating stuff where data science is going. So we're really a lean but effective team that's driving a lot of activity into the product.
Got it. So you also said something in there that intrigues me. You mentioned the funding. So it sounds like you got a series funding with your other projects. Did you fund those yourself, at a Smallbox, or did you get outside funding? Just trying to understand like your funding world.
We always have self-funded.
Okay.
At Smallbox. This is the first time I've taken outside funding. So that was an education right there, having never done that before, but going and raising money and learning how to pitch, just how to pitch. I mean, I know how to pitch like to sell services, but how to pitch a product and, how to build pro formas and really, do market research, understand what your total addressable market is. And, how big is this opportunity? We think it's really, really big, but, it was a really great experience. People talk about fundraising as if it was some sort of horse show. I think it can be, especially if you're not coming from a strong network. In other words, if you don't have anything to leverage in terms of connections, that's really challenging because, a lot of money flows through relationships. That's just kind of how business works, and then also if you don't have something that's viable, which unfortunately a lot of folks they're kind of shooting the moon and they don't really have product market fit dialed in, and we had customers at that point, so we had like validation, and it was a really easy pitch on one level because everybody we're pitching to served on boards. So my pitch was like, tell me about your board experience.
No,
and they talk about it and I'd say, doesn't that suck?
Yeah, relate right to them.
It's like, yeah, okay.
How many did you have to go to? Is it like the Harry Potter story where she had to talk to, like 100 different publishers? Did you have to talk to, 100 different, board members before you got funding?
No, I'll be honest with you. I think we got a little lucky in this realm. We the people that we talked to, I think we closed 75 to 80% of them.
Damn. Okay. Wow.
It was friendlies. I mean, it was people that we knew.
Yeah.
And so, between myself and Andy Clark, one of the other co-founders, our local, I mean, I've been here 20 years and been doing business a long time. And these are people that they know me, like,
yeah.
Our most recent group, the High Alpha Investment, which they came in with, 4 million this past year, over 1 million and 3 million. Two of the guys I did a nonprofit with called the Speakeasy. So we were on a board together in 2011, 2012, 2013, doing this thing, experiencing the pain that Boardable is solving for.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard pitch. It's like, well, it gets more down to the numbers and like how big's the market. But they know me, they know Andy, they've worked with him too. He was one of the co-founders of that nonprofit, the Speakeasy, as well. So that kind of trust is there, and that's important on both sides because we need to trust them as partners as well, because there's a lot of horror stories out there around VCs getting in and meddling in companies in negative ways, pushing them in healthy ways, but that's not our experience at all.
Right on. And then since we're on the topic of purpose, what's the purpose of Boardable that you tell to your team? Like, hey, do you have like a mantra? Is there a drum you're beating?
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it, there's a few ways to kind of talk about this, but when you pull back and you think about what we're doing is we're trying to create healthier nonprofit boards and doing that by removing the friction and making it easier to serve on the board, which increases that board member engagement. So an engaged board means a healthy board. So that means that they're reading the materials. We've got eight areas of engagement. I won't go through all of them, but basically they're prepared, they show up, they follow through, they do what they say they're going to do. We want to help facilitate that engagement. We believe a healthy board drives a healthier organization. And I'll speak from my own experience of serving on some boards here in town that fund nonprofits. Board dysfunction is the number one reason nonprofits fall into disarray, like basically become insolvent. The board was not doing its job. Sometimes there's nepotism involved, bad governance practices. The board members didn't know what they were voting on. So healthy boards, healthy organizations. Then you look at the communities that these organizations serve. The healthier those boards are, the healthier those organizations are, the healthier those communities are. So healthy boards, healthy nonprofits, healthy communities. And for us, that health piece is really important. And to do that on a product level, we have to make it easier to serve on a board. That you're not spending all your time digging through your inbox trying to find the materials. We're reducing friction and increasing access and centralizing all that activity into one place.
Got it. And then so with your team members, like, how do you recruit to pull people onto this? Are these people that, that all want to help nonprofits, or are you just finding the best, for their jobs? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's a blend of those two. I mean, we're very focused on hiring people that are attracted to our mission because it just doesn't work really well to have people that just want to do it to do it. I mean, in other words, they're just like, well, it's a job. I don't care. When you talk to our team, a lot of their why comes down to they really care about their community. They really care about the nonprofits that serve their community. And, Boardable is now a global business. We're in 25 countries. We have customers, 10% of our customers are in Australia. So, when the fires happened over there, they're still happening, but, we reached out to them and asked them, how can we help? And that's very much, the kind of employee that's attracted to Boardable is one that wants to feel like they can really roll up their sleeves and help out. So that's very important. We hire a lot of people with nonprofit backgrounds, with volunteer service experience. So on a cultural level, we're very careful about who we bring in, make sure that they've got the why piece of it, not just the what of, like, I know how to do the thing.
So with the purpose and mission, are those the same thing for you guys, or are those separate?
That's a good question. I think more about mission and vision. The vision for us is, it speaks more to, a more engaged, a healthier world through healthier nonprofits, and that's what, I just walked through the healthy boards.
Yeah.
But the mission is more to improve board engagement. So that's more like how we get there.
Mm-hmm.
So the why of it, which gets more to the personal why of like why we want to do this, is that we care about our community, we care about other people, and that's really more the purpose of this. It's like, when we talk to funders too, that's really important for us. It's like, hey, this is not just a money thing for us. It shouldn't be a money thing just for you. This is more in the social impact zone of like, yeah, we plan for you to make money on this investment, and we want you to make a lot of money on this investment. We're also trying to move the needle on the state of the world, right?
Yeah.
And so the why for the employees and for myself is more, how can we really give back to our communities with a tool that is affordable and solves a real problem.
Got it. Now, how do you keep people not focused, or how do you keep people focused on? That was the best way to put this. Are you the one that's watching the profitability, or is that something that you're communicating to all of the team to make sure that you're driving revenue numbers? You know what I mean? Because some people put one before the other, and I've seen it fail. I want to understand how you do that.
We are very focused on revenue.
Okay.
We just passed a major milestone for revenue, and it's something we talk about every week.
Okay.
It's something that we talk about constantly. In the world of product, you have MRR, monthly recurring revenue, that then leads into ARR, annual recurring revenue. You have churn, which is your customers leaving you. You have net churn, which is like upgrades and customers leaving you, losses. You've got net revenue retention, which is more like sort of long term, like how are you doing with different cohorts. So there's a lot of different ways to look at revenue, a lot of ways to slice it. You have build revenue, which is actually what comes in every month, which is different than MRR. And so we are looking at those numbers as a company every week. And we're extremely transparent with where we are in terms of what's going on. We have bonuses and incentives around hitting those numbers. So, in the end, we are definitely a business that has to hit our numbers. And we do, but there's a lot of hustle to it,
Yeah.
and doing it in a way that's consistent with our values and with our mission is a healthy tension. So integrity is one of our values. And in the past, I kind of poo-pooed integrity sometimes.
I did too. I looked at it as table stakes. It's like, you don't have integrity, I would never work with you. But I'd love to hear your opinion.
It's not really table stakes. I mean, I get how it is for like a bank or something. Like, well, of course, if you put my money in the bank, you better keep the money in the bank. But for a business that's delivering a service, through software or people, doing what you say you're going to do is definitely not always the case. Especially in the software world, there's a lot of people that sell something that's not even in the product. They call it vaporware. We're very careful to, if we say something, we follow through. We hold ourselves accountable. And that's super important to me. Just like on an ethical level, coming down to like small decisions, you get into these little gray areas, and you have to ask yourself, are we being consistent? Consistency is really a lot of what integrity is about. And so I've really come around and embraced that as a value that's important to me after years of thinking of it more as table stakes. So yeah, you change, you learn.
No, it's too funny. Yeah, because I think we have it. My former agency, I think it was one of the core values that we had, and then there was some core value. I don't know. I don't know, thought leader or something when we were talking about it. And I had him review, and he's like, well, this one. And then he really convinced me. And I was like, yeah, you know, you're right. He said essentially, don't ever have core values that you would never be around those people anyway, you know? And that's how I looked at it. But you're right. I mean, there's people that don't have good integrity that continually cancel meetings, are always show up late. You know, and those are signs of integrity. So yeah, if you put all those things into consistently delivering what you promise, yeah, I completely agree. Maybe you've changed my mind, Jeb. Now we're gonna.
Hey, I think it's contextual to the company and for who we are and the space we're in, and the behaviors I want to see from my team and what I want to be held accountable to. Integrity is an important one for me.
Okay. Do you have any aspirational core values, or are they all like, hey, this is our DNA of who we are right now?
You know, we're about ready to revisit core values. So this will be our third time with core values in only 3 years. Yeah. And I think when we do that, we'll probably get more into aspirational. When this company has changed so much. Just in the last 3 months, we've doubled in size. So when you consider just the DNA changes there, and to me, core values are really a way to sort of encapsulate the DNA mixed in with the founders kind of DNA. Like, not just myself, the founders, like, like what was the sort of, what was the, I would think about as yeast going into dough. It's like, what was that original yeast like, like how it expanded the loaf, if you will. But everybody has their own DNA. And I want what we have to reflect more the DNA of the company as it is now. And so I've really come to see core values as something that you come back to and you continually, not every day, but you refine and you dial in so that they speak to who you are more currently. I think at that point, we'll get more into aspirational. I think there are some areas where we need to grow. I think aspirational values are a good way to identify that. I think experimentation is an aspirational value for us right now. And that's going to be a big focus this year is how can we have more of a culture of experimentation?
Do you see a proper mix between, like for instance, like what is the maximum number of core values you would have? And then would you see it like a aspirational to like a current, value mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think that anything beyond 5, I get real queasy, because I think people's brains struggle to get past 3. So we have an acronym for ours. It's not a good acronym. It's dirty.
What is it?
It's dirty with an E at the end. It's
I love that.
It's drive, integrity, respect, teamwork, and empathy. And empathy speaks a lot to the space that we're in. Dirté. It's French. No, it just happened. There was a couple other ones. We could also do tired out of that. We're like, no, we're not going to do tired.
Yeah, that was not good.
So part of this is we want a better acronym. But
you do tread. Your tread. You're climbing. You
got an I in there though.
Tried.
Tiered. Yeah, dirty was just funny, so we kept that. But it's like it's time that was done about 18 months ago.
Okay.
And the people in that business, they're still here. We've only had one person leave the business since we started, but it's just such a different business. So it's like with Smallbox, it felt more stable. Like we just didn't have that kind of like change and growth. So our values did shift a little bit, but they weren't fundamental shifts. Like there's been a pretty big fundamental shift with us. So we have an offsite coming up here in a few weeks, and that'll be one of the things I want to dig into. And I've got an exercise plan for it that will be fun to do.
Right on. And maybe come up with a new acronym.
Yeah.
Dave, can you name all your core values?
I know our acronym is CREED, CREED, and I could probably go through them. I don't know, John. Do you know them?
No, I don't.
You're on the spot.
I know, I'm on the spot too. Okay, let me see. Response is one of them.
Responsiveness, ease or excellence.
Ease excellence.
Expertise.
Expertise. C is I don't know what the C is, man.
Collaboration.
Communication.
Communication. Yep.
Yeah, and
R, responsiveness. E, excellence, expertise, and the D is
don't come in late. No.
Yeah. That's really a good.
Obviously, yeah, and I think we need. What I'm
value.
taking away from this is, we could revisit ours and take a look at them for sure. They're good though. I think they're good.
Yeah.
But are they great?
And we haven't, honestly, it's time to revisit. We haven't done ours since. I mean, John, when you were Revital, you helped us put that together. What, 8 years ago? I think probably. After the first meeting that I met Jeb, I came back from the DMG event and I was like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And you helped me put it together. And I mean, we definitely should revisit it.
Okay.
I'll give you a quick way to do them.
Okay, right on.
Have everybody in the room just take sticky notes and write down attributes of their fellow employees that they admire. Each
That
one
they
per
admire
sticky.
is the key word there.
Yeah. Basically, what do you see in your fellow employee that you think should be cloned? Like if you could take those and put it on a new employee you're hiring, they're just really friendly, they're really helpful, whatever it might be, and then put them on a whiteboard and start grouping them. And then sometimes you'll end up with a word that's not even in that particular group, but it says what the group says. But it's a really quick way to extract values from your team that feels inclusive because they're involved, and it's coming from the DNA of the business. And you can do it in about an hour.
Right on. I love that. And then essentially you just distill all right, these are the make the most sense. And then do you use the word and then write what that word means, right? That's how we always did it.
One sentence. Okay. Yeah, one sentence description. Yeah.
All right.
So we were actually wrong on 2 letters, John.
What?
C is clarity and D is detail. So
got it. Okay. Good. We definitely need to revisit these.
It's okay. You're not alone in this. Alan.
No, I think this speaks to another one of what could be one of our core values. It could be CREAT, which is transparency. We're pretty open about our flaws. All right. So based on your TEDx, you said hiring musicians for different businesses. So you said you hired musicians for different businesses. So what musician proved to be the hardest to work with? Was it the drummer, the bassist, guitarist, lead singer, if you call that a musician? Granted, I was one of those. Or was there another?
I'd say the lead singer.
Really?
Yeah.
Did that lead singer play an instrument, though?
Yes, guitar.
Okay, all right. So technically a guitarist?
Our data scientist is a fantastic musician, plays fiddle, plays like violin, and
oh wow, a little bluegrass.
And part of our connection is music. I continue to be attracted to musicians, and one of our other hires came because a musician friend of mine, it's his wife, and so she applied because of our network as a musician. So it's the musical thing definitely continues to be a thread in my hiring. I just love the way musicians think and how they solve problems. They come about things in a very collaborative way. They're more comfortable with failure. They accept it as something to learn from. I mean, anybody that's written and recorded a song, especially if you've done it many times or gone to a band practice, knows you spend most of your time failing. But you end up coming out of it hopefully with something you're proud of. So that like determination and hard work to get to a finished product is definitely something musicians like just bring to the table.
Yeah, I was in a band for quite a few years, and it's funny. Now that I think about it, we should have just named ourselves Failure. I mean, dude,
John T and the Failures.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's actually a pretty cool
Are you
name.
ready to fail?
Yeah, we're going to fail so hard. I have this little side.
By the way, I love the name of your college. What's that?
Sorry. I have this little band with a bunch of other tech CEOs called the Startups. And one of our
cool.
One of our songs is Fail Fast, and it's like 2 seconds. It goes, fail fast.
Thank you, everybody. Next song.
Right.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, business was always around. I mean, you had the college band Staple Guns. I thought that was a interesting, name. All right. One of your LinkedIn reviewers said, I mean, he had this like glowing review of you. It was, magical. But he said, in closing, he never measures success by how many cool ideas he dreams up. For Jeb, it doesn't count unless it gets done, right? Which I think is that's integrity, right? If we're going to go to one of those core values. So my question with that is, how do you continually motivate creatives to actually get work done, and really complete things without burning out?
Wow, that's a good question. I'll try to answer it more for myself. I think one of the things that I've really come to value about running a product company, it's like an endless onion to peel.
Mm-hmm.
There's always another layer of questions and answers. Like I have a board presentation tomorrow, and board meetings are, let me just say that I didn't have board meetings before I ran Boardable. I didn't have anyone to hold me accountable. That was part of the problem. But
Yeah.
it's a forcing function that's really wonderful, that to like push you to ask questions and then find the answers that then lead to more questions and more answers, and just
Mm-hmm.
pushes down layer after layer. I highly recommend every business have at least an advisory board because of that forcing function. But to answer your question, is that there's just so many layers of complexity and discovery with product business, and a lot of it has to do with data, and how do you have the data speak to you in an intelligent way that informs where the product goes. I find it endlessly fascinating. It's like it's like my life's work feeling, like it
Mm-hmm.
just, it feels like I'm working on this opus, this
Mm-hmm.
major work. And I think that the team feels that way too, because there's a real pride of ownership piece to it, because it's something that people are using every day, but also there's just never ending backlog of ideas that you have to manage and put into the product. And so it's really just about balancing all those things of the customer voice and what they want, the ideas we have for the product, the actual capacity we have, the technical support that needs to happen. I have not had a boring day. I in this business. And I think a lot of people in the product experience feel that way as well, like people that are in the business. So I haven't really seen a challenge with keeping them motivated. They seem highly motivated, to the same way I am, to just peel that onion and to get closer and closer to that really killer solution, which solves the problem for so many nonprofit boards and their organizations. In the small box world, I struggled with it more because we'd be doing client work, and the client work wouldn't necessarily be interesting
Mm-hmm.
because the work might be, fairly. The organization might not be inspiring. We sometimes help people sell things that we didn't believe in, or sometimes the people we're working with were hard to work with. And I think one of the problems that the agencies often have is they take on work they don't really believe in because they have payroll, and that forces them to say yes to things they don't really want to say yes to, which then creates a culture of I don't want to say anger, but definitely like kind of bitchiness towards clients. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a lot of bad mouthing of clients that happen in agencies, I think, at times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something you have to like really kind of disinfect, as a
Yeah.
CEO, and not model, which is challenging because you'll feel it yourself of like, why did they do this? Why won't they answer our emails, and, all those things. In the product world, a lot of that friction is removed. Customers are very different than clients. You have challenging customers, but if it's not working out and they leave, it's okay. You've got
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of other customers. So you want to make it work out. You do your best to take care of them, but you also accept that you're not going to be the right fit. It's not going to impact your payroll in the same way. It's just a different mindset. You don't feel trapped in the way I felt trapped in the agency world at times. I was trapped by talent in terms of my team, and I felt trapped by clients as well. And that was, my fault in many cases, because I kept thinking, oh, we're going to grow. I'm not sure agencies should really grow. Like, I mean, like I think you have to be very careful about growth, because it leads to you saying yes to things you don't want to say yes to, making hires that are more bureaucratic and managerial than they are creative. It takes you away from the actual work that you want to do. Smallbox now is 4 people, and I think it may get up to 8. At one point it was 24 people. That was way too big. I should never have let it get above like 10 to 12 people.
Really?
It just
more of like a studio consultancy kind of.
I just don't think, I think there's sort of like, we've talked about this at like DMG events. There's this weird kind of bubble between like 10 and 50 that agencies get into, where you start bringing on management, you start having like scale, you start doing these things, HR becomes a thing, and all this other stuff starts happening. And next thing you know, you've got all of this overhead, and you're competing against increasingly freelancers.
Yep.
And contractors who can walk into a room and say, I can do your website for $3,000, and you're pitching it for 30.
Yep.
Right. And you're like, well, why are we 10x the value? And I think that was one of the challenges we saw at Smallbox, which is sort of the changing trends, the commoditization of web development, among other things, but also just the Hollywood model becoming more the norm, freelance nation kind of thing. So I'm not trying to be I do think there's a real space for agencies. I've just come to believe that they need to be small and nimble and have very little overhead.
Yeah, no, I love all that feedback, and I think about it all the time. That's one of the reasons, I do this and do the DMG, or decided to start managing it. It's because I think a lot of agency owners, there's something like there's a masochism in it. There's a lot of pain, right? So like the relationship you have now with Boardable, it's compared to your agency Smallbox, it's as if you went from having marriages to now you just have a lot of friends, right? Acquaintances as your clients, right? So the marriages, like when there's a bad marriage, it destroys the fabric of the culture inside the house. They're like, oh, this one account is just, we're the abused spouse in this relationship. It can be really bad. So, and granted, I think in growth, one of the ways is you need to have more marriages. I know that sounds crazy. This is part of the strategy, where to the point where it's like, okay, you can separate yourself more, because essentially you have more clients at an equal value. So though at that rate, that scale, they then become those friends, which could be completely wrong, but that's essentially
no. I think you're absolutely right, John. I think you want to get to the point where you've got no one that's like, when you get someone that's more than 10 to 20% of your revenue, you're really putting your organization at risk, because now they can call the shots. And that's happened at time. We've done a pretty good job. I've seen that happen to agencies where that one client churns, leaves them, and then, they lay off half their team. That's highly traumatic on a cultural level. And so by saying yes to that client and yes to that money, they put the company at risk in a way I don't think they fully understand. And so, I don't know, that's why I like the idea of really small, nimble, highly focused agencies with, groups of, 3, 4 to maybe 15 people just doing killer work, that's just like super niche in a way, like they're just the best at this vertical or this specific solution. And I think that one size fits all model is only really going to work at the really large scale, where they're the global and they're serving global brands. And I don't, prove me wrong, but I just in my own network of people. I mean, I want to be wrong about some of this stuff, right? But it's because I bang my head against that a lot, and it's really hard to scale a creative agency.
I think the challenge that I see with that is, people want to get a raise though. They want to grow in their own life and their own career. And if you're not charging that $30,000 for that website and you're only going 3,000, then sure, you can knock that out and be valuable and deliver that at that price. But if you're not bringing in more and more margin, then you can't keep giving, more and more raises and keep growing people, or they just have to be content with where they're at. And that's the challenges I've run into is not being able to help someone grow and then they leave.
I got an idea on that I want to float with you guys. If I were to do this all over again, I would structure it differently. I would say, look, you're going to get a base salary, and every month we're going to take whatever the cream is we decide we take, and you're going to get so many points based on your role. And you're going to get the rest. In other words, you're going to have the ability to drive additional income. But we got to keep that base to the point where if the sky falls, we don't lay people off, like half the team, right? I just think there's a way to do this where it also gives them skin in the game, because I think too often, in my experience, the employees feel disconnected from the revenue. They don't feel like they can really impact it. They don't have ownership of it, but they can identify opportunities with clients. Everybody should be thinking sales in every business. That's what I believe. They should always be looking for opportunities. So how could you model an agency where you have a comfortable base salary, but you have upside that is extremely competitive? It could be really, really impressive, but we got to get there together. You do that.
That's exactly what we do.
That is what we do.
Hey,
and it works really well, but it also uncovers other issues that you wouldn't think you had to deal with.
Like what?
And so what we're dealing with now is
project selection.
Business unit managers are so focused on just their numbers that some, things that they used to help out on, or, sacrifices. And now I have to deal with teamwork. They don't want to work as a team because that teamwork doesn't help their numbers. So there's other challenges.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point.
The last 3 years we've been on this program has been amazing for revenue, because people are driving revenue at all levels. It has been great. So, but there's other challenges. There definitely.
Well, that's good. I'll turn this into a podcast from my side. I'm curious because in my mind, there's got to be that model to me has got to be more the agency model in terms of like where we are in this age and time, where you just can't go out there and charge, $200 an hour, which is what it was honestly in 2010 to 2015, like not that much, but like close to that.
Yeah.
So I would be curious to see the challenges and the upside around that. If I were to go back into that world, I would definitely just stay very small.
Another thing that I like about that model is during recruiting, most people in IT, whether you're a focus because you're working for a software product company, or you're a support role, you rarely, if ever, get a commission of the business or a piece of that cream, as you were saying. IT is always looked at as a cost center, almost always.
Yeah, right.
And when I get to tell somebody, hey, when you come to work for us, you're going to get a chance to impact your revenue, your salary, weekly, monthly, quarterly. That is really attractive, because most people are not getting that. If they're even getting their cost of living raise, most people, it's just a salary and you do your job and just don't make any noise. So, for the IT guy, I come from more of a developer. I worked once at a company that we were the star, and as soon as they went corporate, all the focus of management went to sales, marketing, and stopped caring about the people producing the product. So I would even ask you that question: I've been in that startup world where the focus shifts away from the real people doing the work, and it shifts into that more sexier roles. How do you plan on handling that when everything's about the sales and no longer the features or the people?
Well, it's not, to be clear, it's about revenue, not sales. Just to kind of give you a little more of our model, we are really focused on being product led as a company, and that means that the product is really the salesperson. So it's a self-service product. It's all about that onboarding experience, really providing value, time to value. So the product team is the star in a lot of ways, because they are the ones that are delivering the experience. So, like, I don't want to say they're the star, because really that's not fair to everyone else either. But in the sense that, like, they are the center of the company. The product's the center of the company. All roads lead in and out of the product. So when we learn something that goes into the product, from sales, from marketing, from customer success, products always kind of like working to build a better experience, reduce friction, increase automation, put all that into that experience. So, that's the way we're built. Now, other product companies are more sales led, and where the product company trails the sales team, and it's trying to like figure out how to fulfill what was pitched and promised.
Right.
But we don't sell that way. That's not the way we sell. You go to our website, you start a trial, you're in the product. We do offer demos. So we're much more like a Zoom, or a company like that, where you just go and use the product and then decide to purchase it. That also keeps our price down, which is important for our market of nonprofits.
Jump into next question. So, people talk about purpose, regurgitate, a lot of, Simon Sinek's language, like it's Shakespeare, but you're genuine about it. Not only do you believe it, but from what I understand, you practice it. Where did this come from? And, how do you implement that today?
I think in a lot of ways it came from my father. I watched him run an automotive remanufacturing business that employed people that didn't have high school diplomas, a lot of them in a very poor part of South Bend where I grew up. And I saw him really give them purpose and meaning in their work, doing profit share programs, pay for performance, doing health and wellness programs back in the 80s, kind of before they were cool.
Yeah.
And having a weekly team meeting, investing in their education, getting involved with their lives. And I saw that these people ended up, lifting themselves up out of, in many cases, poverty. And I looked even recently, and 2 of them are still working at that company, even though it's been sold and another company. So, he really modeled that for me, of like, hey, work doesn't have to just be something you do. It can be meaningful and purposeful. And then, of course, as I got older, I read a lot of stuff, and Patrick Lencioni is probably the one that resonates with me the most, in terms of the way that he thinks about work, and trying to make sure that it's really rooted in meaning and purpose for both myself and the team. I think that on a personal level, I'll just share that I think of myself as an instrument, and that needs to be constantly tuned. And that the way I show up at business, in the business, I have to do a lot of work outside of work to make sure I show up that way. And that's, it's exercise, it's meditation, it's reading, it's I get together with a lot of other people that are like you, leaders, and talk and share. Because when I show up, I want to be fully present. I want to be a battery that charges the business, if you will. So I need to recharge myself. And I think that on an energetic level, a healthy business has a healthy CEO. And that's multidimensional, like that's physical health, mental health. But coming into a space and being fully present, not being distracted, being able to sit with somebody and to care about them. You can have all of the, language you want in your business, but there's no like shortcut for real presence and real care. And you can't do that without doing the self work. And it's not something I'm 100% at. I'll be honest. There's days when I don't show up that way. There's times when I don't feel that way, but it's changed me over time, specifically the meditation practice, so that when I show up, all that kind of dark, shadowy garbage is kind of flushed out, and I can come into the room and be present.
Right on. It's like treating yourself like a performance, professional athlete, right?
I honestly, I think that's, I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but like, I think to run a company that's growing very quickly, you have to grow very quickly.
Oh,
You have to, you have the personal growth has to like parallel the business growth. And I can look back and see it, my small box experience, when I was growing quickly, the company grew. When I was struggling, the company struggled. And I didn't see it always that way. But looking back, I can see that the company's energy flowed from my energy. And it's not just my energy, but as a CEO, that is the most dominant energy in the business, and that's just the nature of how humans work on a tribal level, right? Or tribal.
right.
And so I have to really look at myself and say, am I tuned? Am I ready? Can I, tomorrow this board meeting, can I show up in the way I need to show up? And because that is just, it's the game changer between like good and great, in my opinion.
I love that. And I know we're coming up on time, and I want to get a couple other questions in. You got a couple more minutes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You suck down some whiskey for your next meeting?
I'm drinking I have this is my Georgia cup here. My daughter's name is Georgia. This is the worst designed piece of I don't think you probably can't on a podcast, you can't see this. This is just horrendous.
No, we put the video on YouTube,
Oh,
so
you did?
whoever
Okay.
designed that is
Okay.
probably going to be like, I know, in the comments.
It is awful. And but that's part of what I love about it. I kind of have a thing for really bad design. And it's also I have a tendency of just picking up glasses and leaving them all over the place. So this is one that I know is mine and I don't leave it around.
I love that. All right, so where do you think agencies and or companies are missing out today when it comes to marketing?
Agencies, I think that focus is missing in a lot of agencies. I think they're missing their focus. Like who really like it's hard to say no. And there's two layers to this. It's like you go to market with a focus message, but you do business broader than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to go to market and saying this is who we work with, this is who we serve, making sure that's market's big enough to run the business, right? And then you
Mm-hmm.
do other stuff too. But so many agencies, you go to their websites and you have no idea really who they're trying to serve, and there needs to be more specificity around their target audience. I think, like, are you trying to work with e-commerce companies? Are you trying to work with
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits? Are you trying to work with car dealerships, whatever it might be? I think there needs to be greater focus there. Then it all on the other side, it all comes back to like storytelling, and I think that leading with work is super important. I think agencies tend to lead too much with. I mean, yes, it's important to know who you are, the people in your team, but I care about what you've done. If I'm a potential customer, it's like, show me what you've done, show me how you've helped someone else like me succeed. So that storytelling and
Mm-hmm.
videos and case studies around your success is super important. I'm not sure if I'm fully answering your
Yeah,
question.
dude, that totally answers it. Actually, yeah, I think the focus is the big takeaway there, and essentially, how to accomplish, those pillars under that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right. So, is there anything that I didn't cover today that the world should know? For instance, like, are you peddling or promoting anything that you want to share? Like, this whole space is yours, my friend.
Peddling anything I want to share. Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's a lot of stuff I'm doing in the music world that's starting to come out, and I'm excited about that. I've got a little label called Twin Mono that's about to launch, as a recording studio that goes with it. So we just released a band called the Stray Sparks. They have a song that just came out on Spotify that I love. There's a bunch of other little projects I'm working on. I'm working on a vinyl lending library that I hope launches soon, which will just
Wow.
allow people to kind of come in and check out records and have that
Yeah.
experience. But like in a coffee shop, just trying to just get people exposed to music in new ways. And then there's a bunch of things I'm doing in the nonprofit world, which don't have a huge amount of relevance outside of Indianapolis, but I'm really proud of some of the things we're doing with some nonprofits here in town that I'm involved with.
Right on, my friend. Yeah. Anything else that I didn't cover? You're like, dude, you should have. This is a statement I'd like to leave the world with. That
Oh
maybe.
man, that's a lot of pressure. Uh,
Well, I mean, it doesn't
uh,
have to be as like profound, where it's like you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
chisel it on blocks on a mountain. But
yeah. I would say I'm gonna leave you with a book recommendation.
cool.
I read the Experiment, sorry, Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer about 4 or 5 years ago, and that definitely was a big kind of push down the path I'm on now.
Mhm.
And he ended up forming a company that he sold to WebMD for $1 billion, and all while
Good for him.
running like a yoga retreat in the woods in Central Florida. He wrote a book also later called The Untethered Soul, which is more the how-to guide of kind of how he operates. And I think that for people that are interested in meditation and whether it's Buddhism, Zen, yogic stuff, it's a really kind of modern American way of looking at it, with a business application to it, which is kind of
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of my friends in CEO roles begin to go down that path, and they're sharing stuff with me that I'm reading. That's a really interesting book. It's not long, 200 pages. It's a story of his life through the lens of that journey. And I
Right
don't know. I'd
on.
say check it out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I really appreciate it. And I will. Yeah, I've gone back and forth with meditating throughout my life, and right now I'm really busy. So granted, the time you need it the most, I don't do it at all. No, I appreciate that. Maybe that'll get me back into it. Maybe you've convinced me that integrity is a good core value, and that I need to start meditating again. Is there?
Well, I mean, make do what's right for you, right? That's
Oh,
always the case.
no, I really appreciate it, man. And then, how can people get a hold of you?
Jeb Banner on most things. So at Jeb Banner on Twitter, LinkedIn, and then I have a website, but it's a little out of date. Jeb at boardable.com. Yeah, Google my name. My parents were very, they really saw into the future and gave me a very good name for Google. So thank thank you, Mom and Dad, for the SEO work here on the name.
Right on, man.
You
Jeb, man,
you
this
have
was
a good SEO name too, though.
yeah, I know. That was established years ago. Years
Hmm.
ago. Yeah, I don't think my parents had too much to do with it. If they would have named me, something a little bit more Greek in the front, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Jeb, really appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
And
guys.
yeah,
It's great
absolutely.
to
Thank you so much for being on.
absolutely. It's glad to do it. Good to see you guys again.
Good to
All
see
right.
you.
Likewise, brother. Thank you. Good. So, how do you think that went?
I think that was incredible. I mean, Jeb is full of just great approach. The way he approached things is just really engaging.
Like, he's really smart, man. Like, and super humble. Because, like, I don't know. I think if I had all the same circumstances, would I come to the same determinations that he had, and then also the willpower to move in those directions? I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
I
a lot of
liked
what
it.
he said is easy to relate to. We've been trying to look for a product, but it's impossible to do it in the agency setup. We're a
Hmm.
service company. We're always going to work on our stuff last.
Hmm.
That's why it never gets done. I mean,
So many products have been developed by agencies, though, and great ones, right? Like Basecamp,
yeah,
from 37 Signals, or Harvest, that time tracking app. I don't know the agency that created it, but that's also a really gnarly app. So I love
what's
hearing
cool.
that story of it's possible.
You focus on tools, like he said. You make a tool to help you run your business better, and then you
Hmm.
sell that tool as a product. But
Right.
first, you have to prove it in your own agency. Does it make your agency better? And
Yeah.
that's tough. That is a tough. I mean, there's so
But
many.
hold on, here's the irony, though, actually, because Boardable had nothing to do with making their agency better. That was something completely separate. That was the spinoff product. So maybe that
Correct.
model is what too many agencies are trying to do.
Well, he was also had experience in boards, running boards, and then had a client that needed this. So it
True.
was a little bit more organic. But your examples of the base camp and the harvest and all that, those are tools that they were using for themselves and just decided to productize them. Yeah, that's the dream. But just like we were talking in the the beginning part, it's tough. It's, and I'm glad that he brought up the funding himself, because I almost think like the reason why an agency can't bring a product out of an agency is because of funding, because you're so tied to, killing what you eat, or eating what you kill. You
Eating what
have
you
to
kill.
go after that product. Huh?
Yeah. No, I was saying eating what you kill. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to have funding that takes you away from having to constantly chase projects. Once you get funding and you can focus on a product, that's when you can really do some really special things. And we have a unique experience here at Oyova, is that we've partnered with a lot of companies that are startups and that have their own products. And we are a key piece of their product team. We're still an independent agency, but we've helped them take their product to market. And we get to experience a lot of those things. And, one of our clients just got acquired after being in the market, and just listening to a lot of the things that Jeb was complaining about. I mean, yeah, everyone, it's tough. It's a tough world out there to make that transition. So.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for his success. And Boardable, yeah, I'm on a board. I'm going to introduce it to them because I think it could help out there. What I find really funny though is how and this is speaking more to like the show, where we state like a theme and then it goes like all over the place. And then I'm like wondering, I'm like, are we even like talking about? No, but I'm like, it's cool. And I don't care because I mean, yeah, it's like a starting point, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think we talked about
I'm
it.
calling myself out is what I'm doing.
Funny, interesting story. One of our first pieces of software that was written as Oyova was a management portal for a board for a resort in West Virginia. So they needed a place. What's that?
The Boardist? What was the name of it?
I mean, we just called it It was Stonewall Resort Board Management.
Oh, okay, got it. All right.
So they hired us to build it, and we build this platform that the board members could log in, get the notes, and get those documents that he was talking about. And we did that probably in 2008. And they still pay for it. We still host it for them. It's still a solution that they pay for us every year, and they still use it. And it's pretty interesting. But yeah, the second he mentioned
to listen to this episode, and then he's going to hear that, and he's like, "All right, go ahead and contact that company."
Yeah, hey, go get it. With Stonewall Resort in West Virginia.
Right on. All right, I think it was a fantastic podcast. There's going to be a bunch of stuff in the show notes based on the books that he provided. Also, he did a great TEDx that I recommend everybody take a look at. Other than that, my friend, my partner in climb, is there anything else we should state on this subject before we depart?
No, I think it was an excellent show. Good job.
Awesome. Likewise. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us with the coronavirus. I mean, it means a lot. It shows a lot to your integrity.
Excellent.
All right, thanks.